In just 24 hours, the world as Americans knew it changed dramatically. U.S. import channels worth over $80 billion a year slammed shut, freezing the flow of goods that keep store shelves stocked and factories running. 7 nations acted in unison, halting key exports and sending shockwaves through Wall Street and Washington, D.C., as leaders scrambled to respond. The abrupt move left economists scrambling for answers and supply chains under historic stress, with bottlenecks forming at every link. The question is no longer if Americans will feel the impact, but how soon and how hard, as uncertainty spreads from boardrooms to kitchen tables. This isn't just about economics, it's about shifting global alliances, rising tensions, and real consequences for American households everywhere. The coordinated export bans arrived as formal diplomatic notes to the State Department, effective immediately, leaving little time for preparation. Markets plunged into chaos, with the Dow dropping over 900 points in a single day as uncertainty and fear took hold. The goods affected range from essential raw materials to everyday products, promising a direct hit to daily life and business operations. The White House has called emergency meetings, but the path forward is unclear, and the stakes have never felt higher. America now faces a reckoning on economic resilience, its global dependencies, and its role in a rapidly changing world order. To grasp today's crisis, look back at a decade of U.S. trade policy pivoting toward protectionism. Moves like withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership and imposing tariffs eroded trust with trade partners. The Trade Fairness Act of 2024, with strict labor and environmental standards, was seen as a non-tariff barrier by many nations. Retaliatory threats mounted, setting the stage for today's standoff. In contrast, the U.S.-Canada relationship was carefully nurtured, modernizing agreements and deepening cooperation on critical minerals and technology. This partnership stands as a model of stability amid global volatility. The U.S. approach to the 7 nations was seen as demanding and unilateral, while with Canada, it was collaborative. The result: breakdown with some, strengthened alliance with others. This divergence in strategy has shaped the current crisis. It's a lesson in how diplomatic choices can determine a nation's economic fate. The 7-nation coalition, Brazil, Vietnam, Indonesia, Turkey, South Africa, Colombia, and Malaysia, has emerged as a powerful force on the global stage, united by a common goal. These countries have become absolutely vital to U.S. supply chains, providing essential raw materials and finished goods that keep American industries running. Their collective action doesn't just affect one sector, it hits multiple industries at once, amplifying the disruption and sending shockwaves through the global economy. Brazil, for example, has cut off exports of coffee, soybeans, and iron ore, key commodities for food, agriculture, and manufacturing. Vietnam has halted shipments of furniture, apparel, and seafood, all of which are staples in American homes and businesses. Indonesia and Malaysia have stopped the flow of palm oil, rubber, and semiconductors, impacting everything from food production to electronics and automotive manufacturing. Turkey has blocked steel, textiles, and auto parts, further tightening the squeeze on U.S. manufacturers and retailers. South Africa has banned the export of platinum and chromium, both critical for high-tech and industrial applications. Colombia has stopped the export of flowers and coal, affecting both energy supplies and the floral industry. These are not blanket bans on all trade, but rather targeted strikes at specific U.S. dependencies, chosen for maximum impact. Many of these goods are difficult, if not impossible, to replace quickly, making the impact on American businesses and consumers both immediate and severe. The total value of these frozen imports now exceeds $80 billion, an amount greater than the entire economies of some nations, underscoring the scale of the disruption. The bans are not random, they are calculated moves, exploiting known U.S. vulnerabilities to gain maximum leverage in ongoing negotiations. Finding alternative suppliers for these critical goods could take months, or even years, leaving the U.S. exposed and scrambling for solutions. The coalition's unprecedented coordination signals a new level of strategic challenge, one that demands a swift and innovative response. America's supply chain weaknesses, once hidden, are now exposed for all to see, forcing a reckoning with the realities of global interdependence. The main driver behind these sweeping bans is economic grievance. These nations argue that U.S. trade policies have unfairly penalized them for years, creating a sense of frustration and injustice that has only grown over time. The Trade Fairness Act's strict requirements, imposed without meaningful consultation, have priced their goods out of the U.S. market, making it nearly impossible for their exporters to compete on equal footing. In a rare show of unity, their joint statement called U.S. measures thinly veiled protectionism and a clear violation of established global trade norms, undermining trust in international agreements. Politically, U.S. foreign policy has often been seen as transactional, prompting these countries to strengthen ties with each other and seek new alliances with other global blocs, aiming to reduce their dependence on the U.S. The export ban is both a form of protest and a calculated power play, signaling to the world that they won't accept a subordinate role in the global economy any longer. Environmental standards have become another major flashpoint. These nations argue that so-called green trade policies amount to green protectionism, placing disproportionate burdens on developing economies and stifling their growth. The coalition is betting that the economic pain inflicted on the U.S., from empty shelves to market volatility, will be enough to force a policy reversal or at least bring the U.S. back to the negotiating table. It's a high-stakes gamble. Unity gives them leverage, but if the strategy fails, it could backfire and hurt their own economies, risking jobs and growth at home. For these countries, the status quo was simply unsustainable. After years of mounting pressure, dramatic action was the only option left to make their voices heard. The message is clear. The global order is shifting, and these nations are determined to claim a seat at the table, shaping the future of international trade on their own terms. The impact on American consumers is immediate. Prices at the checkout counter are set to soar. With Brazil's coffee halted, your morning cup could soon cost double. Vietnamese seafood and Indonesian palm oil bans will drive up prices for everything from shrimp to snacks. Shortages will hit furniture, clothing, and electronics as retailers struggle to restock. Revenue losses and layoffs may follow if disruptions persist. Colombia's flower ban will devastate florists, especially during peak seasons. The ripple effect threatens small businesses and local jobs. After years of supply chain woes, public confidence is fragile. Empty shelves and price spikes could trigger a pullback in spending. This cycle risks tipping the economy into recession. The White House knows consumer confidence is now a critical battleground. If the bans persist, long-term damage could be severe. Manufacturing faces shutdowns as key inputs like Turkish steel and Malaysian semiconductors dry up. Job losses and declining output loom, especially in industrial states. Reshoring or finding new suppliers will take years and billions in investment. The crisis exposes the risks of globalized single-source supply chains. Companies will have to prioritize resilience over cost, passing higher prices to consumers. The dollar's dominance is at risk as nations seek alternatives for trade. The coalition is already exploring trading in their own currencies, bypassing the dollar. A retreat from globalization could fragment the world into competing blocs, raising barriers and tensions. The global economy could become less efficient and more conflict-prone. The shadow of this crisis stretches far beyond U.S. borders. The era of open global trade may be ending. While the U.S. faced export bans, a different story unfolded with Canada. The two nations announced a landmark $50 billion trade and security pact, the North American Resilience and Innovation Pact. The deal deepens integration in critical minerals, green energy, and technology. It's a direct response to supply chain vulnerabilities, aiming to reduce dependence on other nations. Joint investments will create new jobs and infrastructure across both countries. The pact streamlines regulations and boosts defense and tech collaboration. With South African platinum and Malaysian semiconductors cut off, Canada becomes even more vital. The agreement is more than trade. It's a strategic realignment for North America. In a world of fractured alliances, this partnership stands out as a model of stability. The US-Canada bond may define the region's economic future. The numbers reveal the scale of the shock: over $80 billion in imports lost overnight. Vietnam, Brazil, and Malaysia lead the group, with billions in affected goods from each. A chart would show U.S. trade with these nations dropping to zero, while trade with Canada surges. The new pact targets vulnerabilities exposed by the bans, like platinum and semiconductors. Consumer prices are set to spike. Coffee could rise 75%, furniture up to 40%. For families, that means hundreds more in annual costs. The 7 nations are taking a risk. Halting exports hurts them too, but they're betting the U.S. will feel it more. Their strategy hit where U.S. dependency is highest and alternatives are scarce. The data shows this is a calculated, asymmetric move. The pain is real and the outcome uncertain. The U.S. stands at a crossroads. The export bans have exposed deep vulnerabilities and challenged American dominance. Immediate shortages and price hikes are just the start. Long-term risks include weakened manufacturing and a diminished dollar. The new U.S.-Canada Pact offers a glimpse of a collaborative path forward. America must now choose double down on protectionism and risk isolation, or recalibrate and rebuild trust with global partners. Embracing alliances could restore stability. Going it alone could deepen the crisis. The coming months will decide America's economic future and its place in the world. Will the nation adapt or retreat behind new walls? The next chapter of global trade is about to be written.